Good morning. Let me put this up a little bit. Thank you so much for having me here this morning. I've got a couple of my fellow Chubby Mermaids sitting over here, Holly and Sonia. Again, thank you for having me here to speak about myself and my group, the Chubby Mermaids. Before I get into that too much, though, I wanted to go back and talk a little bit more about a powerful word, kindness. Everyone say it with me, kindness. I think we are missing that at least it appears like we're missing that in the world today. I think there's more kindness than we realize, but we see so much of the ugliness that I like to try and put kindness out there more. We all know what kindness is. We know how to be and act kind. And no, I'm not going to do like a cheesy self-help book from the 80s, but it's just part of my story. As far back as I can remember, my parents lived in kindness. So I grew up with an older sister, as you said, on the shores of of Lake Michigan, and we had that house that all the friends wanted to hang out at. If somebody was having problems at home, my mom's ear was there to listen. If someone was hungry, there's the refrigerator, the pantry's open, help yourself. It was not uncommon to come home and have friends already hanging out at our house. Holidays, didn't have a place to go. Jeannie put another plate on the table, and then she'd hand you the towel to dry the dishes afterwards. And that continued on into my adulthood. Working in the performing arts, I have a lot of friends who are on the road doing national tours of shows, and if they happened to be anywhere in a 3-hour driving radius and were around for the holidays, we would go pick them up and bring them to our house to have dinner with us and celebrate with us. Does everyone remember those after-school specials about the dangers of hitchhiking and picking up hitchhikers? Do you remember those horrible things? Yeah. Well, if there was a hitchhiker, my dad was picking them up. Often my sister and I had to scoot over, or if the hitchhiker had a lot of stuff with them, I had to jump over the seat and get to the back of the family truckster to make room for them. And I was absolutely certain that my family was going to end up on one of those after-school specials, but no, usually what you found is that they had a really interesting story. They were fine, wonderful human beings who just needed help, and my dad was there to offer that. My dad drove 3 hours to help somebody he never met move before. My parents did divorce when I was 12, but somehow maintained having that kindness towards each other. So birthdays, holidays, we didn't have to choose which parent to spend it with. We all got together. They both remarried, and everyone got along. And when my mom was dying from cancer, we had to move her bedroom to the main floor. She could no longer do stairs. And while we were trying to move furniture, we were trying to figure out how to go pick up this new bed for her. And Larry, being the kind soul that he was like, don't worry about it, I've got it. And he got in his truck and drove 2.5 hours to go pick up this bed to deliver it back for his ex-wife. So that was kind of the kindness that was shown all the time. And my parents also fully supported everything my sister or I did. So when I wanted to try out for the play South Pacific, I had never seen it before. My dad went to the video store and rented, well, back then before VHSs, you remember those disc machines? So he rented a disc machine and the disc of South Pacific for me to watch it so that I knew what I was going into auditions the next day. When I wanted to play basketball, miraculously, I came home from school one day and there was a basketball hoop installed on our driveway so I could practice shooting hoops. Later in life, for some reason in my 40s, I started running, and when I ran my first 5K, when I crossed the finish line, there was my dad standing there. At 40, celebrating me and my accomplishment. And it went to my child as well. Once I had a child and they were involved in school plays and concerts and sporting events, my parents drove down from Muskegon for almost every single one. So having that kind of support, that kind of love and kindness, for me, it was just a way of life. So you welcome and you accept and you love people for who they are and not what you might get in return, because we all know that might be nothing, right? You just are welcoming and understanding and loving because they are a fellow human being. Now, I mentioned starting running in my 40s. My husband and I met doing a Biggest Loser competition at a local gym here in town. And after that, he wanted to get into running, which I didn't understand. Why do you want to run? I hate running. And he talked me into going to an informational meeting for Borges Run Camp. And you could sign up to do a fundraising track to pay for it, or you could just pay out of pocket for it. Well, I like fundraising, and so I decided, okay, honey, I'll do this, and I signed up to fundraise for Girls on the Run. And he didn't, right, it's a great organization, right? He didn't sign up that night. He was going to sign up later. Guess who didn't sign up? Guess who did run camp, who didn't want to do run camp, but did it. And that first day, showing up, at the time, I was weighing 326 pounds, and I was going to do run camp. And I thought, my gosh, I was nervous. My stomach was in clenches. I'm going to go in, and there's going to be these fit runners, and they're going to look at me and say, who is this fat chick, thinking she's going to come in here and run. I couldn't be more wrong. I was welcomed with open arms. Nobody looked at me funny. I was supported. That run group, like, it didn't matter what I was going through, if I was having a challenge, you're doing a great job, keep it up. And I felt so encouraged that I would encourage others who were in the same boat as I. And the next year they asked me to actually coach a slower pace 5K group, which I did. And I had the most amazing time working with that group of people. And eventually my husband did join run camp. He didn't leave me out there. And there was a good excuse for him not doing it. He actually signed up to go back to school to become a massage therapist, and it happened to have classes on Saturdays, and he couldn't do run camp. But so he and I actually did run camp off and on for probably the better part of 11 years. And we always talked about doing triathlon as well. And one day I met this crazy woman on a trail who led other women in teaching them how to do their first triathlon. And so I wanted to try doing that. And misery loves company, so I kind of talked some of my friends from run camp into doing triathlon training with me. And there's something he said for group suffering, right? It bonds people. You're going through a shared experience. And we enjoyed the suffering so much that we did it for at least 5 years. Every summer we spent training and doing triathlons. And for those of you that aren't familiar with triathlons, what it is you swim first for at least 500 meters, if not more. And then you get out of the water, dripping wet, and you mad dash it to an area where you have a bicycle stationed. And you feverishly get on some shoes and hop on your bike, still dripping wet with the lake water. And you take off for a bike ride for about 12 plus miles. And then you come back and you drop your bike and your helmet and you take off running, maybe still dripping wet, and you take off for at least a 5K run. And that's what we did. And then COVID hit, and everything shut down, and we became glorified couch potatoes again. But as we started coming out of COVID and things started reopening a little bit, I get a text from my swim bestie, Liz, who says, hey, I just read about a brand new swim around Mackinac Island. And I thought, swimming around Mackinac Island, that's 8.2 miles. Who swims 8.2 miles? We swim 500 yards. We don't swim 8.2 miles. But she assured me it was something that was going to be fun and we would do it, and I'm always down for some type of weird adventure that she might get us into. And we talked 2 other of our friends into doing it. And all relay teams have to have a name. And what do you suppose came out of that? The Chubby Mermaids. So, what else would a group of pleasantly plump middle-aged women call themselves, right? The story of the Chubby Mermaids. Beyond that, we had other friends who thought it sounded like a fantastically crazy fun idea. And so I think there was at least 2 or 3 other relay teams that first year. Sonia, you did that with your kids, right? And we had spouses joining some other groups. And that reading that you did where you talk about getting in the water and how it changes you and it makes you feel, and you carry that with you, especially when you're sharing it with friends. I think we rode that high for months after we got out of the water. The water around Mackinac Island is crystal clear like the Caribbean without the salt. And if you're not familiar, there are the most amazing geological rock formations. And so you've got like 200 feet visibility and these gorgeous rock formations, and you're there with a few hundred other people for the first time. This was the first time this swim ever happened. And we were all supporting each other, and we had spouses on the land riding bikes with Hurleys behind them, carrying, we call them our Sherpas, carrying all of our stuff. They now have the term chubby hubbies. But it was such a great thing that we wanted to do it, and we signed up immediately the next year. And I think we had 2 or 3 Chubby Mermaid relay teams again the next year. And the funny thing is we all kind of post a lot on social media. And we're all really kind of vivacious, outgoing people, and we didn't realize we had created a little bit of a following, and I had a gentleman come up to me and say, "Excuse me, are you a chubby mermaid?" I was like, "I am." "Honey, it's them. Bring the camera. Can I have a picture?" And I was like, "Sure." And I was getting some of the other ladies in, and I was like, "This guy wants our picture for some reason." And then the next year it was more and more and more. And one thing that we have to do with these events is fundraise. They all have charities that they fundraise for. And like it or not, some people excel at fundraising, some don't, and so we help each other out. But as a unit, we have raised over $70,000 in the last 5 years to go towards first responders in Mackinac City and St. Ignace. We've for women's organizations, for the food banks around Kalamazoo, and other things like that. And then we started getting a lot of other media coverage as well. And somebody suggested to us, why don't you make the Chubby Mermaids more official? So we're in the process of getting our 501c3 currently. And we wanted to make it even more official. And so we want to spread the philosophy of body positivity, of kindness, perseverance. What I love about the women in the Chubby Mermaids is that every single one of them is kind. They are open-minded, they're fun, they're service-oriented, and supportive. We see someone swimming alone, and we invite them to join us. We have somebody who posts they don't have a place to stay at one of the swim events. We invite them to crash on the couch at the house that we've rented. If one of us gets sick, has surgery, anything like that happens, all of a sudden a meal train has been started, and you don't have to worry about that for a couple of weeks. If I get a little choked up, I apologize. Amazing, amazing friends. And my hope would be that every single person, not just women, but I'm here for the ladies mostly, every single woman has a tribe like these ladies, because they uplift us. They move us forward when we don't feel like we can move forward any longer. And I'm just grateful. I'm grateful they've come here this morning. So the mission for the Chubby Mermaids, we actually do have a mission. It's to create a judgment-free zone where women can feel comfortable and confident while engaging in physical fitness. We strive to empower our members through encouragement, education, community connection, helping them achieve their goals of health, self-acceptance, and personal growth. Now, that encouragement is not always dealt with softness. Sometimes there's tough love. Kindness is not always perfect. With each of us have our own anxieties sometimes. Mine is the first swim of the season in our wetsuit. We start swimming in May. The water's pretty cold. You want to definitely have a wetsuit on. And the wetsuit is tight neoprene. And you feel like you can't breathe, you can't catch a breath, right? And so even though I'm not, you're in the water feeling like you can't catch your breath. It's almost feeling like you could drown. And so I have to pause. And when I pause, all of a sudden I see all the other heads pop out of the water. You okay? Yep, just can't get my breath. And all of a sudden I've got a group of ladies surrounding me like, it's okay, and we're just treading water. And we start chatting, and pretty soon we're laughing, and I feel my chest ease, and I can start swimming again. My swim bestie, Liz, petrified of seaweed. She chooses open water swimming, and she's petrified of seaweed. And there's plenty of seaweed in most of the lakes that we swim in. And she hits it, and boom, she comes up out of the water and almost walks on water the first time. And, we have to stop, or if I see it ahead, I'll actually stop and have her follow me, and I'll give her a route through or around it, or I'll say, Liz, flip on your back. You got to backstroke for a little while. That way she's not seeing it and feeling it. She can skim right over the top of it on her back. Another, the first time she's in goggles for the year. She wears glasses, and when you're in your goggles, unless you purchase prescription goggles, she can't see, and so she has a little bit of a panic. And one of our other girls has a panic attack at the beginning of every one of our events. Now, we've all, not all of us, but a large group of us, and I'm going to get these two to do it next year. We swim the Mackinac Bridge. So we put in at Mackinac City, and we swim under the bridge over to St. Ignace. And Sue's done this with me 2 years in a row, and her first year was last year, and she got in the water after training all summer for it, and she clung to her swim buoy. The swim buoy is an inflatable that floats behind us to alert boats that we're here, but it also is a way to watch the swimmers for the safety people. And the thing about the bridge swim is you have to get through the shipping lane of the Mackinac Bridge before a certain time when the barges start coming through. And if you're not through that shipping lane in time, you get pulled. And we were very cognizant about having to get through that. And so we were trying to be kind and encouraging. You've got this, you've trained for it. And Tracey finally just said, "Damn it, Sue, let go of that buoy and start swimming or none of us are going to make it." And she finished 5 minutes ahead of me. So, so that worked. But we try to be a little bit more gentler than that. As I said, I grew up in the small town of North Muskegon, which is a peninsula. If you're not familiar, it's only about 3 or 4 blocks wide and a few miles long. It's got 2 small lakes on either side and then a channel that lets out into Lake Michigan. And so growing up, water was just a part of my life. I happened to live on the one landlocked block there, but I was always in the water. From the age 2, I was taking swimming lessons. And so water for me has been a peaceful place. It's where I find comfort. One of our mermaids found out she has breast cancer and told us just before a big swim this year. And what I found you can also do is you can scream underwater and nobody can hear you. So it's a good way to let out anger and sorrow and grief as well. So being my comfort zone, endurance swimming was a whole new level for me. Swimming for hours on end is kind of like just talking to yourself for a really long time and trying not to drown at the same time. So it taught me about strength, not just physical, but mental, to keep moving forward, that mental strength to push through all your doubts, your fears. And, you know, the road to achieving your goals is not always smooth sailing, right? It can be like driving down a gravel road with potholes the size of Texas. But perseverance is what actually gets you through. Combining your kindness and perseverance, you can find strength that you never really knew existed before. You start to lift yourself and others up. You can realize that kindness is not just a soft pillow, it can be a trampoline that lifts you and others up higher and higher. And perseverance through all the challenges that we face, we need to remember that true strength comes from lifting others up alongside you. So my final words are today, please let's try to keep kindness the norm, persevere through challenges, and show the world that compassion is what is actually always in style. Thank you so much for having me this morning.